What's up, y'all? Welcome to Tabletop Bros. As many of you know, the new edition of Age of Sigmar 4.0 is here, and I, like many other people, have been super excited to jump in. And what better way to learn the new rules and build up an army than an Escalation League? As many of you know, I've been planning to play the Cruel Boys, but last minute I threw a wrench in the gears and switched to Gargants. As I was looking over the Cruel Boys rules, it just seemed like a lot to take in. There's a ton of different units. I was going to have to build an army, sort of plan out what I was going to be doing with them, and even though most of the army was already painted, it was honestly just a little bit overwhelming. The Escalation League was starting up at 500 points. I initially thought it was going to be a Spearhead League and we were going to grow up to 2,000. So now suddenly there was a million more choices. So I decided, for simplicity's sake and to have a little bit more fun, I was going to play Gargants instead. A while back, I got a few Gargants in a trade from somebody, and while they were already built, there were some issues with mold lines. They had a little paint on them already, but nothing too crazy, so I decided I was just going to scrape the mold lines, give them a quick airbrush, and get them on the table. I've been really excited to do some conversions with them, and the idea of starting off with 3 mini Gargants and then having 3 of the mega Gargants and having 2,000 points with only 6 models was super exciting. That way I could focus a little bit more on each model, and as the weeks progressed, I wasn't going to have a ton of stuff that I needed to get done, a bunch of basing, and also the rules are just so much more straightforward. So the way the Escalation League is going to work, we start off with 500 points on the first week, we're going to play 500 points again on the second week, and then we're going to go to 750 for 2 weeks, 1,000 points for 2 weeks, and then we'll jump up to 15 and then do a final grand battle at 2,000 points. That way everybody's got a little bit of time to get used to their armies, plenty of time to actually build them up and paint them, as we have a lot of new Age of Sigmar players. And then at the end of the 8 weeks, we'll all get to do a grand battle all together with some crazy missions and twists, a massive game of Age of Sigmar, and then everybody will be ready for regular 2,000 point games. So as you may have seen in the video that I put up recently, I went ahead and painted up the new Scaventide terrain, perfect for Spearhead. So if you haven't checked out that video yet, check it out, as the terrain came out awesome and it was super cool on the table. So this is the first of the guys that I got in the trade. He already had some paint on them, but like I said, the mold lines were really bad. So I went through, I scraped off the mold lines, and then I just did like a basic airbrush of like a zenithal with some flesh tones, and then just added in a little bit of extra details with the metallics. Also created some custom bases, airbrushed them, and then glued them back down, and give me a good start to build off of. The second guy that I got in the trade was this bad boy, and once again he had issues with mold lines, but I went ahead and did the exact same thing to him, and then obviously I spent a little bit of time, basically a nice evening, just painting him up to a very nice tabletop standard. Added a bunch of extra colors, focused in on like some natural hair additions in very typical places that any Gargant might find some patches of hair. Even did a little bit of edge highlighting right here. Overall, I'm pretty happy with how he came out. I've still got a lot of work to do on him and some additional detail, but I love the bright, vibrant colors. I want to add some tattoos later on as we go, but obviously I'm off to a nice start. I also decided that I would do a conversion on my leader. So this guy is going to be leading my army when we're at the smaller games. I took a bunch of Chaos bits that I had from the Demon Prince. Also used a bunch of Osiarch Bone Reaper armor panels and a couple of weapons to basically give him like a chaotic look, a little bit of an armored look, and then again made a custom base. Went through and just gave him a basic airbrush level, and so far I'm happy with how he looks, but I can't wait to paint him up and take him to the next level as well. So now that you guys have seen my little stomp, let's jump over and we'll talk just a little bit about the rules, and then I'll show you guys some pictures and let you know how the game went. Alright, so here we have the battle profiles, aka the points list, and I started off with the Mancrushers. We have 500 points to work with, so it's basically just 3 of the Mancrusher Gargants, 160 points each for a total of 480 points. So next we have the actual rules. Now because of the way that the Escalation League is set up, we're not allowed to take anything that's over 200 points, monster or hero wise, so that prohibits me from taking one of the big giants until we get up to like 1,000 point game. So that meant that I actually had to use the Spearhead statistics and rules, but without the reinforcements ability at 500 points. So that meant that I had the Bullstomper, which gave one of my Mancrushers the hero keyword, and then battle trait wise I have the Bellowing Roar. So basically in combat I pick one enemy unit, and on a 2-up they get -1 to hit until the end of the phase. I also have the Grab the Rocks and Chuck 'em that I can do during the hero phase. So my hero picks another one of the Gargants within 12 inches, and then he gets 1 additional attack on his throwing rocks. And then next we have the Regiment abilities, so I got to choose one of these. And I actually ended up playing a practice game a couple weeks ago because we had a hurricane, so we had to postpone the league for a week, and me and one other guy still showed up because it was basically just some heavy rain. And I actually tried out the Earth-Shaking Charge, which worked really good. You basically pick a unit that charged this turn, and then roll a dice for each enemy unit in combat with it, and on a 3-up, they get strike last this turn, which was great because it actually worked a lot. But I decided for the actual first game of the league that I was actually going to go with the Foe-Chompers, which is each time an enemy model is slain by a friendly unit's Stuff 'em in my bag ability, heal a D3 to that unit. And the reason I decided to go with this is because once you're in combat, you can't actually rally your unit, and it's a 50-50 chance against like a 2-wound model that you're going to be able to throw them in your bag. So being able to heal back a D3 on a 12-wound model 2 times per battle round seemed pretty good. Unfortunately, in the game, it didn't actually work out that well, but we'll get to that later. And then next we had our enhancements. You get to pick one of these to put on your general. The first one gives you 15 health instead of 12, which is definitely appealing. The next one is the extra big bag, which is when the general uses Stuff 'em in me bag ability, you can pick 2 units instead of 1, which is definitely nice if you're in a multiple combat. And considering the bag healing ability, I was thinking about doing that one. Next was the lanky get. When you roll a charge roll for your general, roll 3d6 instead of 2d6, which all but guarantees a nice charge. But I ended up landing on the last one, Furiously Territorial. Effect: add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by your general that target an enemy unit that is contesting an objective you do not control. So this one's pretty good because it essentially gives me +1 to hit while I'm fighting over an objective. Now obviously once I have claimed that objective, it no longer affects it, and it worked out pretty good, but I'm not sure that I would take it again. So here's our actual war scroll. So each of these bad boys moves 8 with 12 health, a 5-up save, and 10 control. And that control is actually really good, especially in small games. So the thrown rocks are not that effective. It's a 12-inch range, it's 1 attack, and it hits on a 5, which means on average, if all 3 of my bad boys throw a rock, I'm probably going to hit with 1 of them. It wounds on a 2-up, it has Ren 2 and a D3 damage. So even if it does hit, it's not really all that effective. And then once I'm in combat, I can't actually throw rocks. So it's really just like 1 turn of trying to throw a rock. After that, it's basically useless. Next we have our melee weapons, and the cool thing is you get to make all your attacks with all of these weapons. So first is a club with 4 attacks, 4s to hit, 2s to wound, rend 1, damage 2. Then we have a single headbutt attack, 4 to hit, 2 to wound, rend 2, damage 4. And then finally the mighty kick, attacks 1, hit 4, 2 to wound, rend 2, damage D3. And then I have 2 special abilities. One is in combat, that's the Stuff 'em in me bag. Declare, pick an enemy unit in combat with this unit to be the target, then roll a dice. If the roll is at least double the target unit's health characteristic, 1 model in that unit is slain. So most of the stuff that I've actually been going up against is either way too many health to use this against, or it's basically like a 2-wound model. So once again, it gives me a 50% chance because I have to double their health, so I have to roll a 4 up. And spoiler alert, it didn't work all that well, but I was rolling pretty bad. Next we had the passive ability, Timber, which is actually super fun and thematic. Effect: if this model is slain, before removing it from the battlefield, the players must roll off. The winner picks a point on the battlefield up to 3 inches from this model. Inflict a D3 mortal damage on each enemy unit within 2 inches of that point. This model is then removed from the battlefield. I lost a dice roll a couple times, and my opponent picked for my giant to fall and hit my other giants. But again, part of the reason I wanted to use the Gargants is because they don't have a ton of rules, and we knew we were going to make mistakes. So that being said, let me tell you a little bit about our game. So because this was a 500-point game, and it was our first for a lot of people ever playing Sigmar, and it was only my second game of the edition, we divided up all of our players into 2 big groups, and then we did a massive King of the Hill battle. So we had our table divided up into 4 sections, each of us deployed in one of those like table quarters. We had a big objective in the middle, and we all fought over it, as well as our own home objective. So the center objective was worth 3 at the end of the turn if you controlled it. Your home objective was worth 1. And spoiler alert, having 10 OC on these bad boys was definitely an advantage. Now, I'm not the one running the league, but I definitely benefited from this first mission. But this was actually like more of a friendly skirmish because the total play group was divided up into 2 teams, and we're going to be playing doubles throughout the league. And then the people that we faced off against this week were our own team members. So I actually played against my team members this week, and it was a 4-person free-for-all. So I ended up winning the dice roll to go first. We each got to start with up to 200 points worth of units on the table, so I just had one of my Mancrushers, and I immediately just used the at the double and just ran straight on to the point. Right after that, my buddy charged into me with his Dire Wolves, did 4 damage, and then I rolled pretty bad and actually only did like 4 damage back to him. Failed to stuff any of my bag, and then as we run around the table, our Gloomspite Gitz player had a bunch of Goblin Fanatics just absolutely wrecked. He picked up way too many Stormcast Eternals, and honestly, those things are scary. So turn 2, my reinforcements came in and I charged my second guy straight into the middle. My first guy ended up dying, unfortunately. And then Big Red went over to the left and scared off the rest of the Stormcast Eternals. I was able to keep scoring quite a few points by just keeping one of my big boys on the point at all times. And it was basically impossible for anybody to take it from me because of my control score 10. Some Squig Hoppers came out and once again just absolutely wrecked face. The Stormcast General went after the Gloomspite Gitz Wizard. A bunch of goblins ran into the point, and most of them got eaten by the Vergeist guy, the werebat looking thing from Cursed City. And then I charged into combat and basically just missed a bunch more. By turn 3, things were getting pretty thin. I had one giant in the center with the werebat. Most of the goblins were dead. My warlord ran all the way across the other side of the table and slapped around some wolves, some squigs, and a wizard. And because there was such a massive scrum going on over there, everything was pretty heavily wounded, so I split up my attacks and ended up killing the wizard and the Stormcast General. And then I did stuff a wolf in my bag, which is always fun. And then by the time we got to turn 4, it was basically just 2 of my giants left. Both of them were pretty well wounded, and then the werebat in the center. So I double backed and double teamed him. We slapped each other for a couple rounds, but crazily enough, I was missing with almost everything, and the werebat was healing back up. I think he's called the Vergeist. He's pretty good. And then finally, when he killed my other giant, I won the roll off to see where he toppled, fell on top of him, and he died. So that was the end of the game. It was King of the Hill. I had held the point for the entire game. It was a ton of fun, tons of laughter, tons of crazy dice rolls. And honestly, I'm really glad I was rolling poorly because otherwise it might not have been nearly as fun. The giants are super tough. They're super fun. I had a great time running them. Everybody's army had some awesome benefits, some awesome abilities. And I'm definitely looking forward to playing some games and building up on this Escalation League. I'm really excited about what Age of Sigmar offers. One thing I did notice is once you're in combat, it tends to be pretty static. It's also very important that you put in the right thing against the right opponent. Some of the abilities like anti-monster, anti-charge, anti-infantry are really amazing in this. Also, the commands are extremely good as well. I'm definitely looking forward to our next game, facing off against the opposing team, and I'm really glad that I chose the Giants. Not because I won the game, but because I had a ton of fun, and I know my teammates did too. So yeah, that was our first week of the Escalation League, and I didn't mean to mix it up on you guys. I know I said I was playing Cruel Boys, but to tell you the truth, I just got a little bit overwhelmed by the rules. If we would have been playing Spearhead right off the bat, I think it would have been a lot simpler. But choosing all the battle traits, the enhancements, all that different stuff was just way too much. Being able to just pick a couple basic things from the Spearhead was just much simpler. I didn't really have to spend any time picking what was going to be in my army, planning it out ahead of time. I basically just picked these 3 guys right off the bat. Next week, I'm going to have these 3 guys again. And then when we get to 750, I'm going to have these 3 guys again. But the 2 guys that aren't my warlord will have the reinforcements keyword, which means the first time they die, they can come back onto the table. And then once we get to 1,000 points, I'll be able to put in one of my big chunky boys, which I'm super excited for because that's going to give me a few weeks to finish these guys up and make the rest of them look nice like Big Red. And along the way, I'm going to convert up and then I'll be able to paint my Mega Gargant. And then I'll have a couple of weeks to paint my last 2 Mega Gargants. I'll have my 6 models all done, my 2,000 points of Gargants, and I'll be ready for some big Sig. So if you enjoyed today's video and you're looking forward to the weeks to come, the battle reports, the recaps, all that good stuff, hopefully by now Tabletop Bros has earned your subscription. Let me know what you think of Age of Sigmar so far. Have you been having fun? What faction are you playing? Were you a little bit overwhelmed at first with the bigger games? Are you starting off small and doing an Escalation League? Do you think the Escalation League sounds fun? Let me know down in the comments below. And make sure to stay tuned for next week's Escalation Battle Report, as I'll be actually facing off against some enemies, not my own teammates. Later!